All right, welcome into Full Court Press. As you can see in the background, I am on the road to Indianapolis, the road to the Final Four, Rob Vino, where we are on this show. And the next stop, if you will, is the NIT, which will be the feature of today's show. So we're going to talk about both NIT games. We're also going to talk about Crown semifinal number one, which was set after the Crown games last night, which, Rob, some would say we got a little bit lucky, but you know what? We cashed the parlay. Baylor wins big by 20, and Oklahoma gets there in overtime. It's sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I've heard that a couple times. So welcome in, and yeah, we let's try to do it again today.
Yeah, it was nice, Adam. I mean, there's a lot of times where that type of stuff goes against you. Yesterday, the chips fell our way. You're just asking at the end of that game, you're asking, for a 2-point make rather than a 3 and the win. That's what we got. Oklahoma then proceeded to, make a few shots. Still we're behind 83-82 with about a minute and a half left, but really did the job on the free throw line. Honestly, Oklahoma was both sides. I mean, if you had a total play to the over in that game, you're really happy with the free throw shooting in overtime and at the end of the game because it was really, really good. But it was an exciting game. I think, Adam, it kind of played out, the Oklahoma game, the way we suggested it might here on this show, in terms of Oklahoma getting off to a slow start, having that great run at the end of the year, and then having the long layoff. Oklahoma didn't shoot it good to start the game. Maybe some people were able to take advantage of some in-game numbers at some point, but they did turn it on second half. Didn't really want to go home. Colorado, give them credit. They played 8 guys last night, 6 freshmen. Obviously, that's a team that looks like they could be a bit of a problem next year because they played as good a game as I thought they could have played last night. So we'll take the parlay. Baylor made it easy on us. We had to sweat early. We coasted late. We'll take it that way.
Yeah, and we'll get to that game later in the show. We'll also get to chat questions. We may start the discussion about the Final Four if you guys have specific questions, but those games, again, as I said, we will be talking Final Four in detail on tomorrow's show. So, Rob, let's go to Hinkle Fieldhouse, where I will be tonight. I believe Andy Lang will be joining me, so looking forward to that, and really looking forward to both of these games. I think we got an outstanding sort of semifinal here in the NIT. The first game of which could be one of the games of the weekend from an excitement standpoint. Tulsa, New Mexico, which will be the first NIT semifinal. Hinkle Fieldhouse tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. I mean, this is going to be, from a viewing standpoint, this is like as good as it gets. 2 teams, a lot of offense. I'll start with, Matt Winnick filled in for you last week and talked about New Mexico and made a very, very interesting point about this Lobos team and about Eric Olin, the head coach. And essentially what his point was Eric Olin is as good as anyone at making your bad shooters beat them. Meaning he's as good as anyone at scouting out who your good 3-point shooters are and taking them out of the game, or essentially forcing you to beat them with your lesser shooters. We saw him do just that against St. Joe's. And it actually, St. Joe's, to their credit, was able to, they had a couple of their lesser 3-point shooters. I think Derek Simpson came out and hit like 4 threes right off the bat. But over the course of the game, it kind of worked out. St. Joe started to miss threes. The reason I wanted to bring that up here is that Tulsa doesn't have any bad shooters. This is as good of a 3-point shooting team as you're going to find, and one of the more efficient offensive teams in the country. So that's kind of got me leaning toward Tulsa, Rob. But at the same time, man, New Mexico could put the ball in the basket as well. So side or total for you, but this kind of feels like it's got Rob Vino over written all over it.
Yeah, I tell you what, when you said from a fan standpoint, and also you said that if this were on a weekend, or it could be one of the more exciting games of the weekend, it's also a difficult handicap. That's for sure. That's how good of a game it is. That's how close of a game it is when you go to handicap it. You can make good cases for both sides. I'm going to do that right now just to lay out the game. You're absolutely right. I mean, if Eric Olin is seeking out a poor 3-point shooter, he's got issues because Tulsa comes with Riley. Tylen Riley, the point guard, is the least likely. These guys all have large sample sizes. He has the smallest of the sample sizes. He's only shot 66 threes this year, yet he hits 39.5% of them, and he's the worst. That's the guy. I mean, if that's the guy you want to shoot threes, you're probably in trouble. I think when you add Barnstable in, when you add Popola in, and now last game we added David Green back. David Green gave you 23 minutes last week against Wichita State and likely to go 30 plus here tonight. He's had more time to rest, more time to get acclimated back into the team. That's a problem. All three of those guys I just mentioned, 40% or better from three. So they just surround the perimeter and open guy launches. And I think you had, and I'll let you say it again because I won't say it right, but the statistic that you got from a Tulsa staff member when you were there, as far as their shooting is concerned, the one thing that I think maybe Tulsa is going to be a little undersold on here, Adam, is my immediate inclination was, well, they'll get hurt on the boards tonight by New Mexico. Bouillon's been great in this tournament for the Lobos. But then I look back to the Wichita State side, or the Wichita State game, and Tulsa didn't get hurt on the boards at all. Win by 4, close game, but Wichita State, I don't know. I would, in my opinion, they're probably a better rebounding team than New Mexico, and New Mexico's a good one. But Wichita State's savage on the glass, and Tulsa didn't get hurt at all on the boards by Wichita State. So that forces me to somewhat think that maybe I should negate that advantage to New Mexico. New Mexico wants to run. Tulsa wants to run. I don't see either side, game planning for this and saying, man, I got to slow New Mexico down. Man, we have to slow Tulsa down. I think they're both going to do what they do best. I give a slight edge to Eric Olin from the defensive standpoint. You mentioned what Matt thought of his capability of kind of taking the best shooter out of the game. But Eric Olin, we know what he did at San Diego. We know what he's doing here at New Mexico. This team can score quickly. They played a game a couple games ago where Dayton Albury didn't even play. They've had 107 against Sam Houston, 86 and 84 in 3 games, all in the pit, granted. For Tulsa, all at home, granted. But Hinkle Fieldhouse is a pretty good shooter's gym. I think these guys probably shoot well here tonight. I sort of lean over Adam. In the beginning, when I first started this handicap, I was siding with New Mexico a bit. But now I'm starting to come around to Tulsa somewhat. So I don't know if I can get to a side here. At 161, it's a big number. But New Mexico seems to get their 80 plus every game. And as good as they are defensively, I think they'll have issues with Tulsa's shooters. The one thing you hope for if you do play over in this game is that Tulsa doesn't go cold from 3. But you can counter that by telling yourself, you know what, it would take 4 guys to go cold from 3. Are all 4 not going to be able to shoot tonight? Because somebody's going to step up and make a bunch of shots. I guess a slight lean over. I'm way more interested, I think, in watching this than playing this. But it's as good a game as it gets. You're right. Tulsa, outstanding offense. And Mountain West has come under some criticism because they exited this tournament early. But New Mexico is a really, really good team here, Adam. And I think they've got multiple ways to score as well. So we'll see. If defense wins the day, New Mexico will win a high-scoring game. And last thing I'll say to Tulsa's credit, Wichita's not a good shooting team. But, man, I think they held Wichita. I should have the numbers right in front of me, and I don't. But I believe it was like 3 of 19 or 3 of 20-something from three-point range that Wichita shot against Tulsa last game, which is way better than what the Tulsa defense has been this year. So you got Eric Conkle on one side, offensive guy, Olin on the other side, defensive guy. It's a good matchup.
Yeah, we could talk about this game for an hour. I mean, there's so many like sort of like ins and outs of this one. I think, again, like Tulsa, I think, New Mexico is going to defend the rim. They have an elite rim defense. So they will force Tulsa into a high volume of threes. But like you're saying, it's like, is everyone going to go cold? You got a lot of guys on this team, Barnstable, 41.1%. He's an elite shooter. Pupula, I probably said his name wrong, but he is also over 40%. And then you've got guys like David Green who are not your typical 3-point shooters that still hit the three at a high percentage. Now, I will comment on the two sort of guys that missed time in this tournament. David Green, it's a shoulder injury. I don't really think David Green was ready to play last week. And I think that was something, Rob, where it was like, hey, I'm a senior, right? Or like whatever, I don't want to go out with, not getting on the floor. He played 23 minutes. That was not the typical effort you get from David Green over the course of 23 minutes, 5 points. He did get 6 boards, but you could tell he was, kind of favoring the shoulder a little bit. Granted, that was a week ago. Now, Dayton Albury was sick. He's probably fine, right? Like he missed the weekend game with an illness, and then they didn't really need to play him much because he played didn't need to play him much in the second half against St. Joe's because that game got a little bit out of hand. But he only played 15 minutes. I would imagine that he's back completely normal and totally fine here. So you should have full 2 teams at full strength. Tulsa's taken money, which I do agree with off the opener of 4. But kind of like you were saying, there is paths to both teams winning. There's path to both teams winning in blowout fashion. I joked with Andy Lang. I said, "Oh, you're in for a treat with New Mexico Tulsa. It's going to be the first one to 90." I kind of think that's what it's going to be, Rob. I would be shocked if both of these teams don't score. Here's the other thing. For that total, yeah, it's a big number. But like even if one team scores at like a super efficient rate, which I think you probably get here, the other team would have to like almost lay a complete egg to not get that 1 to 160, I feel like.
Yeah, I'd agree. And if they do get a big lead, you force the other one to chase, which is even better for you if you're playing over. Again, I look back at the Wichita State game. That game got to 162. I would not consider Wichita State the type of offense that New Mexico has in any way, shape, or form. But I would consider Wichita State to be on a defensive par with New Mexico. So the 83 that Tulsa put up, although at home, I think translates here against the New Mexico defense. And I think that the New Mexico offense, listen, Bouillon's going to be a handful for Tulsa down low. If we just want to go over what they have to attempt to defend, he's been a monster in this tournament. They're very good, and not a lot of teams are, but New Mexico's very, very good at scoring at all 3 layers and in multiple ways. Like New Mexico will pound you underneath. They'll beat you mid-range. They'll beat you from 3. They'll beat you in transition. They'll beat you a lot of ways. There's a lot for Tulsa to defend here. And so, I'm an over guy anyway, so I do lean that way. And, client-wise, it'll probably get to the card tonight, but should be a great, great game. And I also think, I said this before, but I do think you have to take into consideration the venue. And I do think Hinkle is it's a basketball gym. It's a good place to shoot. So I think that these guys will be A-okay. And I don't know that the moment, it's a lot of upperclassmen in this game. I don't know that the moment will actually, get to these guys. I think they'll be okay. And everybody wants to get to Saturday, right? Gamebridge is the goal now because that's a big spotlight game.
Yeah, it'll actually be Sunday by itself at night. So that's going to be Sunday night. The final is going to be at Gamebridge in where the Pacers play, and Gamebridge Fieldhouse, I think it is where Indiana Pacers play, and that will stand alone at 8 p.m. on a Sunday night in between the Final Four and the championship game. So that's pretty cool right there. That you're going to have a bunch of people in town for Final Four weekend. And on Sunday night, it's, they may get like 10,000 for that game in in the Pacers arena. So that is a pretty big prize in my opinion, Rob. And one other thing I'll point out just to I guess make a further case for the total. You talked about Wichita State not shooting the ball particularly well. Kenyon Giles, who has been just a bucket all year for Wichita State, 4 for 15 in that game, and he could not get his shot going. I know this because I was on Wichita State plus 4.5 in that game, and yet still somehow Wichita State came back. Rob, they were down 26 points early in the first half of that game. They came all the way back to cover the 4.5, and even with the shooting woes, there was 162 points in that Wichita Tulsa game. You mean to tell me this game's going to have less points than that game? I don't know if I could see that, so I lean toward the over.
Yeah, quick story about that, which I had posted a picture from Las Vegas when I was on vacation before we went into the concert. Had a lot of people there and some Wager Talk colleagues, but Teddy was there, Brian Leonard, myself, and me and Teddy both had Wichita State plus 4.5, and there's TVs all over the place. And when we arrive at the place, we're getting smashed. The comeback begins. And as superstitious as bettors are, I know I am, I know Teddy is, we would be on one end of the table and it would go all wrong. So we'd walk all the way to the other end of the table where it would go right. And we just stood there till the final and covered that 4.5. But, Adam, last thing I'll close with is somebody could argue us and say, you know what, the Wichita State Tulsa game had a lot of free throws. There was a lot of extension at the end of that game. And, it's a valid point. However, this game has that same potential for extension at the end of the game. You have to figure that in. A game that's lying this close, a game that probably will be close, you probably get that extension. So I think we're both saying the same thing here as far as over is concerned. We'll see. If it gets over that number, it's going to be a really exciting game.
Yeah, I think that's again, you want to talk about potential extension at the end of the game. I think the only way there's not extension at the end of this game, Rob, is if it is like a one possession game, right? Like where it's like a one possession game and you got teams playing for a stop, in which case, if you are, if you do like the over in that scenario, well, maybe you get the Rob Vino special from last night and it ends up in OT and you go ahead and cover the over there. So yeah, I think that's kind of how I think you have to look at it. And again, you'd have to have a serious sort of dud from one of these teams, I think, for this one to not go over the total. All right. Joey Cheese is in the chat. He's here for the UConn hatred. Listen, Joey, I already said as someone that, the great part about being a sports bettor is, and not a fan. Obviously, I'm a fan of, I consider myself a fan of Siena College because that's where I went. And I'm always going to have a little bit of bias there. But Rob, the beautiful part about being a sports bettor and not really being a fan is you can hate a team one day and then the next day you're all over that team. That was me with UConn. I was on them against Michigan State, although I have to admit I was on the wrong side of the Duke game. I had Duke -5. Thought I was chilling. Thought it was all good. And here comes UConn back to win the win of the tournament without a doubt. So shout out to Joey Cheese and his UConn Huskies. They'll be here in Indy this weekend, and we'll get to them maybe a little later in the show. Definitely tomorrow. That game will get the full treatment tomorrow. But first, we got a game that goes tonight that needs the full treatment. This will be part 2, semifinal number 2, Hinkle Fieldhouse. Auburn Tigers, Illinois State Redbirds, Rob. Geographically very close for Illinois State. I hear it's going to be a lot of red at Hinkle tonight. Some of that red's going to be New Mexico red. Don't underestimate that fan base. Though they will come support their team pretty much everywhere. But I think most of the red is going to be Illinois State, a quick drive from Normal to Indianapolis, and kind of a big deal for them, Rob. I know it's, the NIT, but getting a chance to beat Auburn is a big deal for a school in the Valley, especially when none of these SEC schools will give them the time of day during the regular season. So Auburn, Illinois State, I'll let you kick this one off. How are you attacking this game?
This is interesting again because I think you can make cases for both sides here. The one thing I had to overcome or try to overcome in this handicap, Adam, is the class difference between conferences. Yeah, I get to a point and I say, well, is the Missouri Valley team really going to be as good as the SEC team with the SEC talent? I know when this tournament started, um, you had the opinion that if Auburn comes to play, they probably should win this tournament. They're probably the best on paper. And then they go out and they kind of play with their food, so to speak, in a couple of games here. And then they did get the job done to get to this point. And now when you're at this point, if you're Auburn, it's got to be full pedal to the metal. Now, the path to get here for these two teams, certainly Illinois State had the way more difficult path, right? The opening game against Kent State is, I think back now, it seems an eternity ago. But I remember liking Kent State in that game. I played Kent State in that game. I thought they'll play close. They always give you a good 40 minutes. They got destroyed. Never in doubt, Illinois State win that night at home. Then they get forced to the road to play the 1 seed Wake Forest, do the job there. Then they get forced to the road, play what could arguably have been the hottest team in this tournament, Dayton. Beat Dayton at home, beat Dayton at their own game, basically just out-defended Dayton. And so now they're here. Question is, can they defend Auburn? Total-wise, Adam, here's the problem I run into with total here. I like comp games. When I look back at Auburn-Seattle, Seattle's a slow tortoise-type team, defensive-based, don't shoot it incredibly well at all. That game goes 91-85, 176. You let Seattle score 85. And that kind of takes me away from my first thought process, which would have been under. This game could very well get over. Illinois State, for what it's worth, they do hang their hat on defense, but they've been good offensively down the stretch. And a guy that you've mentioned a bunch of times on this show, Johnny Kinzinger, seems to be playing his best ball of the season now, which is helpful to Illinois State, because you take a look at what Stephen Pearl had to say about this game. I'll just read the quote here. Pearl noted that his club has to focus on 6'9", 280-pound junior forward Chase Walker. Chase Walker's been everything for Illinois State. So if the focal point goes to Walker, guys like Kinzinger are going to have to step up offensively. Two things here in its simplest form. I do believe Illinois State's going to be fully focused, and Illinois State's going to have a ton of energy. And sometimes Auburn gets lax. Auburn has had 2 games in this tournament where they had 16-point leads and blew them both at home on their home floor. Blew them in the fact that they didn't cover games that they should have covered against Nevada and Seattle. So it's hard for me to back Auburn here. It's almost equally as hard for me to push myself to the Illinois State side, but I think that's where I would land. And I think you might get a doubleheader worth of overs because, again, Auburn allows teams to score, Adam. I mean, they're a funny team. They just don't – they don't give me the impression all season long that they are fully focused for 40 minutes. There's lackadaisical stretches in games for them, especially defensively. Illinois State, I don't think will show that. So I have a slight lean here toward the over. I think that would be my number one option. And then very close, almost like a horse race entry, 1 and 1A. I think Illinois State plus points is probably a good spot.
I still am not convinced that even now that we're at Hinkle, that Auburn really cares about this tournament. Like, if you watched every minute of Auburn basketball, they're just playing carefree. Like, they are just out there chucking shots up. Now, it's a little dangerous because they have, their players are better than Illinois State's players. Let's not get that confused. I mean, Keyshawn Hall, Kevin Overton has been tremendous. Pettiford's played really good. Individually, they have the best players in this tournament, right? And you go back to, I think it was like the South Alabama game. They didn't care about that game. And then on 5 straight possessions, they hit 5 straight threes. And suddenly you went from them being down 6 at halftime to suddenly now you're starting to do the math. Am I good with 19 and a half? It literally got to that point as someone that was on South Alabama. Am I good with 19 and a half here? I was just up 6 at halftime. You talked about the Seattle game, Rob. Seattle's got some size and the ability to score in the front court. And Auburn, they just didn't, again, there was no real effort to stop them. Now, Seattle hit 16 threes, but a lot of that was because stuff was so open, because eventually they had to start guarding the guys in the paint. And now all of a sudden Seattle had all these 3-point shots open where they hit 51.7% from the field. But Auburn still won the game by 6. And I think that's the trend we're starting to uncover here is, once again, Auburn is the better team. And you go back to the Nevada game. I was on Nevada plus the points there. They were flirting with being down 20 in that game. But Auburn, again, they're not really guarding the rim, and Nevada kept working hard and got their way back into the game. Part of the reason Auburn can't guard the rim, Rob, is they are one of the teams without one of their better players. They've been without Keyshawn Murphy. Keyshawn Murphy, 6'10" forward. Not the end all be all, but he is a lot better defensively than who's been taking his minutes. I think it's been Philip Jovic has been taking his minutes, and he's just not the defender Murphy is. I'm kind of with you. I think there's going to be points here too, especially if Kinzinger, who's someone that I criticize quite a bit for being down this year and sort of, costing. I think I had Illinois State number 1 or very close to the top of my power rankings for this league coming into the season. And Kinzinger just did not replicate what he did last year. But, you texted me because I know you cashed a bet in that Illinois State Wake Forest game. And you texted me Kinzinger with a bunch of exclamation points. And I texted you back, it's about time. And, really, he's had a good postseason tournament here. And if he's going to do that, and Chase Walker can, we know he can score inside. He's been as good as it gets in the MVC for post presence, sort of like guy that can draw defenses. They're going to have to worry about him. I'm kind of with you. I think we're seeing this game the same way.
Yeah, and I called it lackadaisical. You called it carefree. It means the same thing. Auburn is it's almost like they know, hey, we're better than you. The South Alabama game that you referred to, I even forget. Like I say, these things seem like an eternity ago. But remember that South Alabama showed up with like 7 guys.
And yeah, they were without 2 of their best players, which was unknown, unbeknownst to me. I was, yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then Auburn, all right, green light, hit the gas, and next thing you know, they're running away. So I think they can always score on anybody. I know Illinois State's been good defensively. I don't know that Illinois State can take Auburn totally out of their game for 40 minutes. Illinois State, they're not going to win this game the way they beat Dayton. Let's put it that way. Going to have to score. So I do like over in that contest.
All right. So we did cash our parlay yesterday. So we are going to put together a 3-teamer today. And you have, basically, we've got four games to choose from. There's 2 Crown games tonight. Now, we did the full breakdown of those games yesterday. There's 2 NIT games, which we just broke down in full. So, Rob, because this is where it fits on the show, let's go to the Crown, but let's go to the semifinal game first on Saturday, because it's the only time we're going to talk about this game. There's no number out for it yet, but I don't think it really matters in terms of us breaking this game down. And I'll tell you guys that I think it's likely something like Oklahoma -1. I can't see this opening very far off a pick either way. I think you're going to see a pick, maybe a -1 Baylor, maybe a -1 Oklahoma. So this is just where this game fits in terms of our show schedule the next 2 days. So, Rob, let's do a little look ahead. This is the Crown semifinal, which is on Saturday. And then with the time left, we'll circle back and maybe rehash some of the show from yesterday, try to find a couple winning bets for today's slate. Oklahoma, Baylor. I had Baylor last night. You ended up being right on Oklahoma. How are you looking at Baylor, Oklahoma now in the semifinal round?
Yeah, general, right off the top of my head, first instincts on this game would be, I think Oklahoma got themselves together. They had their slow start. Then they pulled it together and played a really good game from the, I don't know, I would say maybe the 6-minute mark of the first half on, they played pretty well. And we know how hot they were down the stretch. So I like that part about them. Love what Baylor did last night. However, I would caution against Baylor simply because Minnesota is inept offensively. They just don't have anything. They're short players. They only have one real scorer. We talked about Crocker Johnson being out. That proved to be a problem. So for Baylor, and guys, excuse me, because I'm under the weather a little bit here. For Baylor, I think the issue is going to become, can they defend Oklahoma? And if they can, I'd be a little bit surprised. I think that Oklahoma will score. I think Baylor will score back. Wow. Because nothing I saw.
I can jump in quick. You need a sip of water. I'll jump in for a second.
Yeah, Rob. Go ahead. Take over for me quick.
Well, I wanted to just play off a point you were making. About that being more Minnesota ineptitude than Baylor, like just being this like such a better team. I feel like if you watch the first half in that game, Baylor led by 5 at the break. I don't know if you could have even sort of said, oh, Baylor's just so much better than Minnesota right here. They just, they had a couple putbacks and, Minnesota missed a good look right before the half. I'm saying someone sitting there with Baylor minus 3.5. I wasn't thrilled with that first half. I kind of felt sitting there thinking, man, we kind of got outplayed a little bit, but I noted yesterday that they would have a big rebounding edge against Minnesota, a big physicality edge against Minnesota. Maybe Minnesota doesn't, maybe they start bringing in some of their lesser players and Baylor is just a far more skilled, more physical team. I kind of think all of that happened over the course of that game. And then you're sitting there at the end of that game. Now, Minnesota also did what we thought they might do, where they only played 6 guys. It's just they gave that one Shinholster, that their one bench guy got a lot more minutes than he usually does in yesterday's game. But I'm with you being that Minnesota team was a shell of the team that Minnesota was at their peak this year when they were at their best. Whereas I kind of think Baylor showed up with their best team for this tournament. However, now you have to turn around and play Oklahoma, who also showed up with all of their players. And it's Rob, once Oklahoma shook the cobwebs, they looked like what I expected them to look like in this tournament. So if we're kind of looking ahead, I think I'm going to like the Sooners here because I just think that they're, again, I'll go back to our conversation from yesterday. They were probably one crazy Missouri 3-point buzzer beater away from being in the NCAA tournament. We weren't sure how serious they were going to take this tournament. They didn't play the best first half. They kind of let Colorado do whatever they wanted in the first half, but that second half was a lot better. I kind of think Oklahoma might be the favorite to win this thing now, the whole thing.
Yeah, you know what? I said yes, I would have played them in the NCAA tournament as they had made it. I think they could have been trouble. It would have been easy for them to take the floor yesterday, Adam, and overlook Colorado. 3 starters out. They can't possibly beat us. But the shooting is more or less what I was looking for. Once they straightened out the cold start, they've got too many guys. They really do. They've got so many weapons as far as scoring is concerned. I don't like them defensively, though. Still don't like them defensively. I think Baylor's got, a counter weaponry that can attack them and score on them. It'll be interesting to see where this total opens. I think you'll get a totally different game. Baylor has to play a totally different style here. Um, for the Colorado side yesterday, 33 points came on free throws. Oklahoma's got to stop fouling people. I know it was an overtime game and there was a lot of extension. And let me just say real quick, as you talked about that Missouri game where they get beat by the 3 by Mark Mitchell, of all people, at the buzzer, and Oklahoma went through those devastating losses early. It shows kind of how the season has turned for them, because you know what? Last night, Adam, it could have been another devastating loss for them. Early in the season, you know what would have happened? Colorado would have hit a 3 at the buzzer and won that game. Walk off 3. It didn't happen last night. The game got extended and Oklahoma winds up winning. I'm going to look at total here if it's not unreasonable. And I agree with you that I think Oklahoma is probably the best team remaining in this field.
Yeah. And Porter Moser looked like he was having fun last night. That looked like a team that that wanted to be there. And you know what? Like, I'm not going to discount them for struggling with a shorthanded Colorado team, because I think we were both right in our counterpoint yesterday. And I think it's part of the reason that you gravitated toward team total as opposed to side. Tad Boyle would not have come to this tournament if he was not taking it seriously and like preparing his team to play. And listen, Colorado, they showed up to play. They played extremely hard. Yeah, they were a little bit shorthanded, but don't knock Oklahoma for like not blowing them out, because that was a team that was well prepared, that was there for that opportunity to win. So I love to see so far 2 games. I don't think we've seen, I'm going off of a chat question here, and we can kind of get into this as we circle back on the games from yesterday that we've broken down, the 2 that will go tonight. So far, I don't think any team has showed up and just not wanted to be there. I just think Minnesota was very, very undermanned in that Baylor game. So let's go back to the 2 games that we talked about yesterday for a minute, Rob. That's going to be tonight's game. West Virginia, Stanford, Creighton, Rutgers. Does what you saw last night from a competitiveness standpoint, and the fact that there was some people in the stands, it was more well attended than I thought it was going to be. I know it wasn't full house, but there were some people there. Now that you've had the luxury of watching 2 games, does that change your opinion on the 2 games we talked about yesterday at all?
Well, I always thought that West Virginia would come to play tonight. I don't think that Ross Hodge would have it any other way. He's kind of an intense coach, defensive minded. We went through all of this yesterday. And I don't think that my opinion changes of the strategic way that West Virginia has to go about this. Obviously, you're just like Bruce Pearl is zeroing in on Chase Walker. They're going to zero in on Okoye. There's no question about it in this game. And I think that West Virginia has the defensive capability to do it. I will also, again, I don't like to, and I will say that you and I haven't brought this into context much at all, if at all, in our handicaps of the NCAA tournament, the NIT, and the Crown. But I'm going to I brought it in once today. I brought this in yesterday. I'll do it again. I just think that the class of the Big 12, the class of the opposition that West Virginia had to play this year, the class of the star players on those teams kind of puts them in a great position to defend here tonight. The ACC just doesn't have the same thing, but I think the bigger point is West Virginia's seen all of this before. They've come out victorious in some instances against this before. So, from Darren Peterson to now, they know what they have to do here. I said yesterday I hadn't looked at ticket sales or how they travel, but West Virginia, Morgantown travels. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of blue and gold in the stands tonight. So it doesn't really change my opinion about that game, nor the quotes I read about Rutgers Creighton. They all want to be here. Coaches have said so. Players to a man have said so. So I think you'll get the same type of excitement and focus tonight from these games.
Yeah, my handicap really hasn't changed at all. We talked about yesterday. I will say this though, in relation to that West Virginia Stanford game, I think I pointed out that if a team was not going to maybe be like all in on this sort of venture, it would be Stanford. Just because, and the reason I say that, I have no intel on that being true or not. But the reason I say that is, they're close by. So it's not a big, listen, West Virginia is not coming across the country to play in this game if they just straight up don't care. But Stanford, they're around the corner. I just, and I guess I go back to if they are not fully engaged and they just think all right, we're going to roll the balls out and see how it goes, they will be in the same boat as Minnesota last night where they're struggling to break 50 points against this West Virginia defense. But if they show up and they do, they've prepared for this game and they have a good game plan, namely I think what Stanford would need to do is probably go zone and try to force West Virginia into shooting the basketball. They could be in the game, and without a doubt, they have the best player on the floor. Buko Okori is the best player, might be the best player in the building of any team in this tournament. I mean, he's an insane talent. But if they think it's just going to be hey, we're going to stand around, Okori is going to cook, and we'll see how it goes, I think they'd be in for a rude awakening, because I do think you get the big time defensive effort from West Virginia here. Oh, I think you're muted, Rob. I think you're muted.
Oh, am I better now?
Yeah, you're better.
Yeah, I think, Adam, I think also to your point, I think that West Virginia has had to shoot the basketball, even though they're not a good shooting. Sometimes these statistics, we talk about it a lot, sometimes they're a bit skewed when you're shooting into Big 12 defenses for 19 games, 20 games. That's going to lower your percentage. It's Stanford's defense. I think you said it yesterday, and I agree totally. It's not good. It's not good for West Virginia. This is going to be a step down in defensive class, and maybe guys are able to make shots tonight or find openings tonight that they couldn't find in Big 12 play.
All right, Rob. Maybe let's preview, very quick preview into what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So tomorrow will be our Final Four show, where we break down both Final Four matchups. We'll also look at the NIT championship game, since we will have a matchup after the semifinals tonight. And then the other crown semifinal tomorrow, we're going to take a look at that as well, because of course we'll know what it is after Rutgers and Creighton, Stanford and West Virginia play tonight. But I want to go to the chat, because Walter says, I've got to ask Adam, does he still think UConn sucks? Seems a bit outside on that one. To answer your question, my opinion on UConn hasn't really changed. But you have to understand that the NCAA tournament is all about matchups. And so when I was really anti-UConn, so two things. One, I was anti-UConn against the number in the Big East, because I did not feel like they were worthy of the numbers that they were laying in February in the Big East. Then when I sort of doubled down on that again, was in the Big East tournament, where I didn't necessarily think they were a better team than St. John's. I'm still not sure that I don't think my opinion has changed, but I do think that when you get into matchups that are super favorable, and now all of a sudden it's you get a little bit of momentum. They got Furman in the first round, which was a gift. And then they get UCLA without Billadou in the second round. If UCLA is healthy, I think UCLA probably has a really good chance to win that game. And then Michigan State, I actually bet UConn against Michigan State in that game for 5%, because I felt like the matchup was so favorable to UConn. I can't explain what happened in the Duke game. I cannot, you guys all watched it. I cannot fathom how Duke opened up a 19-point lead and did not cover 5. And not only did they not cover 5, found a way to lose that game. That will forever blow my mind. So to answer the question, yeah, was I wrong on UConn? And you know what I was wrong about, which is something I've said so many times, Rob. I've said this a million times. UConn has the best coaching staff in the country. Dan Hurley is the best coach in college basketball. And his teams just do not quit. And that's maybe where I underestimated UConn a little bit. They didn't quit after blowing an 18-point. What did they have? An 18-point lead against Michigan State. Saw it dwindle completely away. And then, had the the sort of fortitude to see that out, and they did not quit when they were down 19 to Duke. So that is where I was wrong about UConn. I don't think my rating of them was that flawed, though. What do you think about that, Rob? Do you have a counterpoint to that?
Well, I could have a comparison to it. I would say UConn, because you made the point about them being overpriced inside league play all season long. Fair point, fair assessment, valid assessment. Say the same thing about Michigan. Look where Michigan is. Michigan failed to cover 8 straight in Big Ten play, just too high priced. When you're talking about straight up and ATS, they're 2 different conversations. And I think that you and I and anybody else out there who's betting games every day, we have a different assessment of things. Our wins and losses are according to point spread. Our who's good and who sucks is according to point spread. It's not necessarily according to straight up. We don't pay attention to AP top 25 polls. Doesn't matter. We pay attention to our own top 25 power rating polls, which normally are more accurate than an AP top 25. So I think it's 2 separate conversations. You can, in one breath, say UConn sucks and mean it as far as point spread is concerned, as far as our everyday endeavor is concerned. But it might not, they're still 30-plus wins. They're a good basketball team with a lot of depth. I will say the one thing about UConn, Adam, that I do think plenty of people now are on the bandwagon. Not that they didn't think he was a good player to start with, but I don't think people thought he could play to the level he's playing now is Terrace Reed. Terrace Reed has just been an absolute force no matter who they've played. For about the last 10 games, he has shredded teams underneath. He scored his passing ability in that Duke game. He made 1 pass from inside the paint for a layup. It looked like a behind the back pass at first glance. It wasn't. But still, Terrace Reed and his free throw making ability has gone up a little bit. He's still not a good free throw shooter. But I think he's the one guy on that team that has somewhat gained. If you want to talk about NBA stock, NBA money, that's a guy whose stock has risen incredibly over the course of the last 10 games.
Yeah, I got to go to the chat for a sec. Colin Gregory is referring to he just pointed out Connor Griffin got called up for the Pirates. Yeah, that was a little bit of a fail by me, Connor. Colin. I was gonna go to I purposely was gonna leave early to go to the game in Columbus last night to see Connor Griffin play because I figured he would get called up sooner than later. And the weather just looked so not promising that I was like, I would have had to leave on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. I was like, the game's probably going to get rained out anyway. Long story short, game did not get rained out. It got played in its entirety. And Connor Griffin the next day gets called up to the big leagues. So yeah, missed opportunity there for me. Little disappointed about that, but I don't think you're going to get a chance to see him at the AAA level, maybe ever again, unless he's rehabbing, because he probably should have been on the Pirates opening day roster when just sorry to go off topic there, but I had to chuckle at that because you know what? I'm probably only like a half hour from the stadium right now, where I'm at on my way to Indy. So yeah, that was a fail for your boy. Missed opportunity to see Connor Griffin play. Hopefully, we're going to take advantage of this opportunity, though, Rob, to bet college basketball tonight. So my question to you is, do we're trying to make up for lost time. We've only got 3 chances at a parlay the rest of the way. Do we try to fire the 3-teamer here since we're feeling good about winning last night and maybe find a leg that the 2 of us agree on? This probably is our last chance to do it. Today and tomorrow, probably the last chance to do 3-teamers this year.
And I will say this, I'm just looking here. It looks like there's an opener on the Oklahoma game. You couldn't have been more right. Oklahoma opens -1 with a total of 157.5. So I guess that at this point in a parlay, we could include that game because now we have odds on it. 4 games. I guess we shoot for 3 here right now. A 3-team parlay.
Yeah.
I guess we
All
do.
right. Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, no, I think we should too. And I'll let you get first. You got first choice. So you get to pick your game first, whatever one you want to go to.
All right. Well, as usual in this time frame when we're on, things are on the move. I think we agree on the other one and may end up using that as a dual play. So I'm going to go ahead and play West Virginia plus the 1 here tonight against Stanford. I'll use the 1 as, protection against, up by 2, 3-pointer at the end of the game, whatever. But I think West Virginia wins outright. So give me the first leg. I'll go with West Virginia plus the 1 against Stanford.
All right. Yeah, I agree with that one too. I am gonna go to our first NIT game tonight, Rob. I'm gonna go with the over in Tulsa and New Mexico. I cannot see a way that doesn't get to 160. After our whole breakdown of the game, the fact that Wichita State being a much basically a less efficient version of New Mexico and sort of the way they attack offensively, and the fact that Kenyon Giles had a bad game, still got to 162. And then the fact that Tulsa's going to have to probably make a whole bunch of threes to hang with New Mexico here. It's just hard for me to believe that we don't see 160 points in this game. And that total's still sitting there at 161.5. Is that what I'm seeing? 161.5. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's very fair. Yep.
So I'm going to go with the rare, usually I'm the one taking sides and you're giving out totals, but I'm going to go Tulsa, New Mexico over 161.5 will be my parlay leg. I just think that there's unlimited scoring in that game. I'll tell you what, I could probably be talked into anything else you like, because just the way we spoke about these, I feel like we're on the same page. So throw one out there and I'll let you know if I agree. I feel like I'm going to agree.
All right. Well, if you had gone anywhere else other than Tulsa, New Mexico, we would have definitely over the total. We would have co-signed on that one. So that's definitely a dual liked game. You know what? If I can, I'll skip ahead to Saturday. I said it earlier in our brief overview of the Oklahoma Baylor game. I think that one's going to get up there. Oklahoma's going to score. Baylor's going to punch back. Baylor does have offensive capability. 157.5. I was expecting, honestly, Adam, I was expecting to see a 160 on that game. And when it popped up at 157.5, man, I feel like that's got to be an over game. I don't know how you feel about that one, but it just seems to me that Baylor's going to have a different animal offensively to defend here in this game now that Oklahoma's got it going. And for Oklahoma, Colorado put up those types of numbers yesterday with 6 freshmen on the floor. So I think Baylor can do the same.
Yeah, I will. I guess if we're cool with including a game that's on Saturday, which is ultimately what we're going to do with tomorrow's parlay as well, is going to be probably a couple days ahead. I'm good with either. I mean, I can get down with the over there if that's what you want for your. I mean, I agree. Like the joint leg for us is really West Virginia, right? So we can call that the co leg that we both very much agree on is West Virginia. And I'm going to take the over in Tulsa, New Mexico. Yeah, I don't see why we can't put the Saturday game in.
Let's do this. Let's let that, because the Oklahoma Baylor line, from what I'm seeing here, is only available in one spot right now. Maybe we'll save that till tomorrow. And
we'll save that game till tomorrow.
Let's double back to this Illinois State Auburn game. And whichever way you choose, I happen to think it's going to go over, Adam. 149 looks like the number. Auburn's taking some money at this point in a couple of places, but mostly still 7s, not a bunch of money. But
I'll tell you what, I'm already in lockstep with you, and I've already revealed that I agree with you on West Virginia. So I'll let you make the call. This one can be your game. You pick whatever you like better.
Let's play the Illinois State Auburn game over. I just think that Auburn is allowing teams to score too much. We talked about the game at length, so we don't have to rehash it again. I think we're kind of both on the same wavelength here. So rather than chance it with a side, I'll just say I think there's going to be 150 points. That's what we need here.
And that would help me be a good host. I am trying to entertain Andy Lang tonight. I promised him points. I said, Andy, you
Oh,
got
all
to come
right.
out to these games. Going to be a lot of points scored. They're going to be exciting games. So I hope that's the case, because 2 NIT overs likely means we had a pretty good time watching the games. And you're kind of getting I feel like you're getting a little bit of a bargain price wise on this over in Illinois State Auburn. That dipped a little bit, which is, I guess, surprising to me.
Yeah, and if you tell Andy Lang that our parlay includes 2 overs, he's going to say Vino definitely forced you into those overs.
I just want to comment real quick. True Believer, we already broke down the Illinois State Auburn game in detail, as we did the Tulsa, New Mexico game. So you can head back to the replay of this show. You get all, we did this game in, probably spent 10, 15 minutes on it. Rob, what are you seeing for a number that's fair for Illinois State Auburn over?
8 out of 10 places I'm looking at right now show 149.
Yeah, we'll roll with that.
It's as high as 150. It's as low as 148.5.
All right, so that'll be our 3. We're going 3-teamer for today. Couple Hail Mary shots as we try to close the year on a strong note for the parlay. Parlay won yesterday with Baylor and the team total over in the Oklahoma game. So tonight we have West Virginia +1. That's our joint leg that we both agree on. I'm going to go with Tulsa, New Mexico over 161.5. Sorry, Tulsa, New Mexico over 161.5. And Rob is going to go Illinois State Auburn over 149. I like that because we'll also know if we hit or not coming into tomorrow's show. And guys, if you're looking for Final Four information, that is what Rob and I are coming on to break down tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. The penultimate, I think is the word, full court press episode. We've only got 2 left. We're going Friday and then championship Monday. So tomorrow we will cover both Final Four games, the NIT championship game on Sunday, and we'll also try to look ahead to those crown semifinals, which will be fully set after the games tonight. Appreciate all the support all year, guys, and appreciate the likes, subscribes, the donations, you guys buying our joint package. It helps a ton. I do have a play in one of these games that is a client play. It will be up on my page after the show. And we will be back here tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, for more full court press. See you guys then.